Is that working? Good evening, everybody. Welcome. This is our first meeting for budget tonight, and I'm Ron Anderson, and I'm going to call the meeting to order at 6 p.m. By formally recognizing that we are meeting on Aboriginal land that has been inhabited by Indigenous people from the beginning. We respectfully acknowledge that the municipality of Brighton is located on the Mississauga and Anishinaabeg territory, and it is the territory of Mississauga. The Council of the Municipality of Brighton is respectfully acknowledges that the Mississauga Nation are the collective stewards and caregivers of these lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. I have, as we move for approval of agenda, I have a motion here by Mayor Ostrander and seconded by Ann Butwell that the January 11th, 2023 Committee of the Whole Budget Meeting agenda be approved as presented or amended. All in favor of as presented? Bear with me one moment. Just before we move into staff, no, before that too. Just one moment, please. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest or of that general nature by council? Yes, Mayor Ostrander.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I don't know if it will come up, but the Hilton Cemetery is owned and operated by Trinity St. Andrews United Church, and I am a member of the board of directors of Trinity St. Andrews United Church. So if there is any discussion around the Hilton Cemetery, I will recuse myself from those discussions.
Thank you. Anyone else have any? Yes, Councillor Butwell.
I was for a time being on the fundraising committee for Sunny Days group program this past year, and I may have during the course of my being on that committee, I have certain duties of confidentiality, items that were discussed, so I may have to, depending on the conversations, have to recuse myself.
Okay, thank you for that. Anyone else? Okay. With that, we'll move to number 4, delegations. Are there any delegations tonight? Any? Number 5, any citizens' comments? Did not see any. Thank you. Okay. Just before we move into staff reports, let's discuss the process of the budget delegations. Linda will provide a brief overview and budget. It's a budget binder. You've all received that. We got that in plenty of notice. Thank you. And we'll process with the budget deliberation. Following the overview, staff have requested that we discuss capital budgets first. Sorry, somebody's indicating my mic's not working. Oh, that's what it is. Thank you. Big desk. Okay, well, we're going to discuss the capital budget this tonight. And we've got lots of meetings coming up, so we'll take our time and we'll look for lots of questions by council, and we'll move through it smoothly. Once the Director of Finance has completed the budget overview, we will turn to the large print section of your white binder and ask questions and staff and decide by consensus if we will leave or remove any items in this. Now, again, we can wait and move along after decide at another meeting if we want. By consensus, I will go around the table right now and ask each of you if you like this practice tonight of focusing strictly on the capital budget and using this process. I'll do that now. You're good. I got a thumbs up there. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. And I didn't need to ask everybody, so thank you. Now I'll ask Linda to provide us with the budget overview that we're all looking forward to.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. First of all, I'd like to just welcome all the 2 people that come to our budget meetings tonight. Again, thank you for coming. I'd like to really express my thanks to the senior management team as always. It's a lot of work getting this budget binder together, and everybody puts their effort into it. And so I want to express my thanks for everything that they got to me so that we could get this budget book out before Christmas. So the municipality is required to adopt a budget, and that includes all the amounts that are required for the purposes of the municipality and the revenue sources to fund those expenditures. And that's found in
I was trying to.
Okay, so I don't know if everything was in the microphone or not, but anyway, that legislation for our budgets, lower tiers, found in section 290 of the Municipal Act. And the budget guidelines are generally set by you, council. But this being an election year, we didn't have that opportunity to bring that forward before now. So this year I sat down with the CAO and we established some guidelines very similar to what we had established in the prior few years. So we reviewed obviously the direction of the prior council, the strategic plan, and we started with a limit on the capital budget of CPI plus 1 to a maximum of 3%. And so your capital budget that you're going to look at tonight is 3% of the capital levy last year. On page 3, the executive summary, there was a typo. It showed that the increase was 5 point something, and the total increase in dollars was about $50,000 too high. So I've given you a replacement page for that. And so everybody will see that and you can just dispose of that page. Thank you. MPAC provides municipalities in Ontario with the assessed values for our properties based on the current value assessment in 2016. This is the 6th year that those assessments have been based on that valuation, and delays in reassessment are partially due to COVID. And I understand that it's going to be 1 more year in delay before they start doing reassessments. MPAC provides the municipality with a change in assessment, which is referred to as growth. So the growth calculation is for 2022 was found on page 4 of the budget book. and that's equivalent to $219,668. What I mean by growth is the difference in assessment on January 1st, 2022 to January 31st, 2022. And that's the amount that your tax base grew by in that period. Some of the items that were not included in the first draft budget can be found on page 4. Challenges and opportunities are on page 5. And we've also included items that are contributing to the budget increase on that page. 3 meeting dates have been set for us to meet to discuss the budget all in this month. Following tonight, we have a budget meeting on January 17th and the 30th at 6 o'clock. And I know that adopting the budget is tedious and we want to take our time so everybody feels comfortable and that we move through the process and decisions are made that you're comfortable with. So council will need to decide on some February dates. And we're going to bring some suggestions forward at the January 17th meeting, and we can include that on that agenda. Tax rate comparisons are found on page 6 of your budget book. Reserve estimates have been included in the budget book. They are not firm numbers, they're just estimates. We do our best guess prior to completing our December 31st, 2022 year end. And we've also included a large print pop out of the reserves in your binders. A schedule of internal borrowing for our vehicles and equipment, land, the columbarium, which is included in this year's budget again, and industrial park can be found on page 10. And again, there's a large print pop out. We find it easier sometimes to look at the numbers a little bigger. A schedule of external debt is included in the first draft budget starting on page 11. And the annual repayment limit that was based on the 2020 FIR is included on page 13. The only debt that expired in 2022 was for the solar panels. We completed paying for those in 2022. Grant and aid summaries can be found on pages 13 and 14 and also in the grant and aid table at the back of your binder. And all of the backup for that is in your binder as well. And we will discuss grants and aid at one specific meeting. And all staff will not attend that meeting. It will be just the clerk and the CAO and myself. Some boards and agencies have submitted their budgets. So a couple we've had to estimate, and they're found under the external budgets tab at the back of the binder. And now as we move to the capital budget deliberations, I want to note that the capital reports start on page 38 of your budget book, and the capital project summary can be found under that tab in your binder. And so I will pass it back over to you, Deputy Mayor Anderson.
Thank you, Linda. Anyone have any questions at this point? Anything for Linda, or shall we move right ahead to our booklets? We're going to pull out the spreadsheet that we talked about with the capital on it, and we'll go through each department. Each department director will present their section, and we'll wrap up each one with questions before we move on to the next department. So I will review it slightly as well. So who is Linda? Will you be going first here with the general government?
So in the general government capital budget, we are carrying forward a few projects, and the only new project is the stairs at the back of the building here. I believe that Danny has put together this budget. I don't know if Leslie feels comfortable speaking about this at this point, but they're mainly carryover projects.
We have any questions with Linda on any of that? We have 178,500 in general government, which is supported with $53,000 and 500 reserves and reserve res funds reserve funds as well at 125,000. So any questions from anyone on the council on general government? No? Oh, yes, thanks.
Quick question. You indicated that the first three line items were carryovers. How long have each of those items been carried over from?
And they're all from last year's budget.
Just from 2022? Okay, thank you.
So I have a question. I guess we are expecting those to get done this year for sure. It's something has anyone answer that, can answer that? Oh, thank you.
The answer is yes.
My point is carryovers are great, but if there's some things that need to, so I'd like to go as we go, ask about some of the carryovers.
Okay.
Leslie, thank you. Thank you for sure. And but well,
Thank you. Do these prices need to be adjusted then for any increased cost to the municipality?
okay. Thank you, Jeff. Go ahead.
One of the first sections here talks about an infrastructure gap, looking at total renewal need for roads up to 2031 is $52,700,000. And so 43% of this cost is reconstructing paved roads, 20% is resurfacing surface treated roads. So that's 63% of almost $53 million is just for roads in Brighton. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Jeff, I thought I'd let the question, you gave the question, I'd let that answer, but I think we'll leave that as we move through into roads and public works.
I
through that.
apologize. Which page are you on?
I'm on page 1 of the project.
Oh, you're on,
Spreadsheet.
I'm on page 39, the start of the. Come on, I'm looking at the wrong page. I apologize.
That was a good question. I just thought, but we'll just save it. And if you want to bring that up again a little later in the program.
Deputy
so-
Mayor, the microphone is not transmitting very well. We're getting a lot of feedback, strange feedback through my speaker, and I'm worried that it won't translate well over the live stream to YouTube or through the recording. I'm just don't know if it's a microphone or where it's situated. I don't know.
Try that.
I don't know what to say. Better. Okay.
Leslie, you're in good shape now. All right, well, we're going to leave the general government at 178,000 for now. And we'll have some more questions for you later, Leslie. I'm sorry, but let's go right to the fire department and Chief Thompson. I'm sure he's ready to go.
So this is my first time in the process with municipality of Brighton, so. I mean, unclear, do you want to go through each line item or is that what you would like to do, or what's the process?
Anyway, if you can just enlighten us with some of some of these items and the importance of them perhaps, and how do we get to that $1 million number in your department?
Okay, so start at the top with the bunker gear replacement program. Our bunker gear lasts around 10 years. Well, it does last 10 years and then it expires. So we have to keep ahead of that. Each set of bunker gear is around $3,000. And just from a rough estimate, with 400 calls a year, over 10 years, you can, your 4,000 times you put that gear on and off without training. So it does go through a lot of wear and tear. Also from our cancer prevention program, we do launder our bunker gear quite a bit. And when that is being laundered, that takes that gear out of service, which takes that firefighter out of service. So we try to build up an inventory of spare gear, which is usually 5 to 7 years old. And by replacing 10 sets per year, will keep us in line with, to keep our guys in service. Hose replacement, we did our hose testing on all the hose. Oh, sorry, is there any questions on that? So the hose replacement, we tested all our hose this year as per NFPA. We did have quite a few failures. So the $30,000 is to replace the failure hose plus give us a few spares. Now, some of that hose is 20+ years old. So you do get quite a lifespan out of it. The guys do take good care of it, but it all depends on usage and, if we have a major fire, then, and so it's, that there is needed. We're at very low spares. Our trucks are all full, but there's very low spares for replacement if we do need it. Two-way communications, our portable radios and pagers, so we can call the firefighters to the scene as well as communicate. And that paid for itself there last weekend with the big storm when we had people spread out throughout the community and to be able to communicate with our firefighters. The combi tools for extrication, I believe we made around $40,000 reimbursed revenue off the 401 where we do most of our extrication. And the combi tool is a battery operated, it's a cordless extrication tool that we use all the time. And we were going to, we'd like to replace or put one of them in station 2 as well. Because when we have station 1 out on the highway, station 2 covers the rest of the municipality. And that tool would get used a lot. It makes it easier for off-road. We don't have any cables or hydraulic lines to pull and pumps to pull out and heavy equipment. We can put that in the back of the UTV and then take and go and do our extrication with that. Two-way radio communications is our new network that we're trying to do countywide. So all 7 municipalities are going together. Or in the county of Northumberland is helping us as well. The tower is coming down at the Boy Scout camp on Highway 45. So that's what's pushing us to go to a new system. So what that'll do is give us a network of, we're calling it lightweight digital radio system that each municipality will be able to communicate with each other for interoperability, as well as our paging system will work much better. So current system now is 30+ years old, and it is very fragile right now. We've had some issues during the big windstorm in the fall, but this project's been going on now, I'm going to say for 5 years. So this is a $40,000 placeholder basically to make sure that we can buy the hardware to be able to put on the towers once we have the design completed. Station 2 IT updates. Station 2 is our EOC. It's the systems are very out of date. I've worked with John, our IT manager here, to try to come up with a rough number, and we figure around 20,000. To add to that, all the firefighter certification training that the province is mandated to have done by 2025. A lot of that is online training. And to allow our Station 2 firefighters and our Station 1 firefighters, because that's where we meet all the time. That's our only training room that we have in Brighton right now. And to have that capability there for them to do online training is going to pay for itself pretty quick.
What
And
does
then today-
what does EOC stand for, Chief?
The Emergency Operations Center. So that's where we would meet if we have a major emergency. But it's critical infrastructure, if you want to call it that, to be able to have good IT back there. So they are running fiber in that area, so that should help us a great deal. But this will purchase the monitors and the hardware and the, you know, we want to put in an alarm system and so on to protect that building. So if you think about it, we got $3 or $4 million worth of equipment plus the building. And we haven't, and it's not staffed 24/7, so we want to be able to monitor that building as well. So that's what that's for. Land acquisition was a carryover from 2022. Self-contained breathing apparatus, again, supply chain issues, that's a carryover from 2022 as well. Was scheduled to be here in December, and now it's looking like February. And the final one was a design for the new fire hall / EMS combined station.
Thank you. I have a question from Mayor Ostrander here.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and through you. So we have a $1.1 million capital budget request, of which $130,000 is being asked for from the taxpayer to support that. Is that how I'm reading this? Everything else is coming from carryovers, reserves, or reserve funds, or from reserve finances.
Correct.
Yeah, thank you. That seems pretty fiscally responsible to me, Chief. So my only question then is what's not in here that we should be considering?
So the big ticket item that we pulled out after discussions with our director of finance and our senior management team was the pumper 270, which is 2003 pumper. It does have some issues. This is quite a gain, or quite a job to have. You gotta to buy a new pumper now could be up to 30 months delivery. So the new pumper that we put, pump tanker we put in Station 2, the identical truck has went up 30% since last year. So less than 12 months, it's went up in price. So
What's the price tag on the replacement of the 2003
you'd
pumper?
be right around 700,000, and you would be kind of splitting the cost between two years, right? You'd order it this year, get the cabin chassis in stock, and then pay for the second part of the pumper the following year. So
Thank you.
Well, depending how we fund that, it could possibly be 3% or better added to our budget this year.
The reality, we've never purchased a fire truck outright. We've always financed it. So
Yeah,
that's,
That's
I mean,
all,
that's-
yeah, correct. So I know you pulled it out and for good reasons. It's gonna be a challenging year, but for budget wise, but is it something, anyone else have any questions on that or any concerns about anything on that list? But in particular, I'm interested in knowing more about the fire truck. Go ahead, Counselor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. There's a figure in here of 391 for land acquisition, and clearly there's a need to do something with our main station. Is that a realistic number? Has land appreciated in value that it's going to make this a challenge? Because I think we need the facility. I just want to make sure that we have adequate funding built in to do this.
I'll let our CEO answer that one.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the 391 is the residual that's left over from 2022, and it's reflective of an agreement of purchase and sale that's already been put in place. What we're now waiting for is simply a ministerial approval. We'll be attending Roma on the 23rd, a meeting with the Ministry of Representatives of Education in order to try and facilitate that transaction. So I'm comfortable with the dollars.
Just a follow-up question and I guess a comment on the pumper. It's a significant sum of money, but can we really afford to defer it? You know, it's back into the catch-22. I was up there this summer when you showed us the new piece of equipment and I saw that old clunker that we've been running for years. And I don't want to see us get into that situation again. Maybe we need to seriously think about biting the bullet and moving on with your new truck sooner than later. And believe me, I'm not a big fan of tax increases, but this is a vital service. That's my opinion.
Thank you. Anyone else? Go ahead, Councilor Rowley.
Thank you. I want to agree with both the mayor and Councillor Paredes as well as far as the pumper goes. Wondering if subsequent budget meeting, Linda, we could have some kind of idea how we could maybe internally borrow or how that would work, if we could find some dollars to, as you say, we're going to be 3 years before we get it. So we could be maybe halfway there in that time. So I'm not sure if those numbers can be crunched at some point.
Linda, do you want to address that question?
I can definitely bring something forward. I'm just not sure what the dollar amount. I'll have to talk to the chief to see what we'd have to put down for a deposit, because that would be the only thing you'd expend in 2023.
I'm sure the chief could find us that number.
I can.
I have another question too. I have
Go
one more
ahead.
question. Chief, regarding the upgrades for the two-way radio communication, $40,000. When I read kind of what we've got written here, it looks like Public Works and Parks and Rec are part of that as well. Is the fire department paying the full bill for that, or is it shared between the other departments as well?
I'm going to say yes for Brighton. We, the fire department, that money will cover our whole municipality.
Right. And the fire department is paying the shot, although it could benefit, as it says here, Public Works and Parks and Rec as far as the radio system, but you're paying the shot. There's no other cost shared from the other departments.
No, not at this time. So where I say Parks and Rec and Public Works, that includes Northumberland County's roads department, that includes all the parks departments throughout. No, this is our share of this major project across the county.
Are there any other questions before I will ask, go ahead.
Just a clarification, across all 7 of the lower tier municipalities in the county.
That's correct.
It's not a county budget item.
Shared.
Right. It's a portion of it will be paid for by the county, but all 7 lower tiers are also funding this as well.
Correct.
Correct. Thank you.
Okay, if there's any other questions, if we can back up to the fire truck one more time before we leave this section, is if Linda could bring that report to the next, then we can discuss the fire trucks some more at the next budget meeting with more information, and we can sleep on that one as such. So so I see we've got so far almost $2 million for the fire department, and which $280,000 is going to be paid from reserves, and 25,000 from reserves as well. Financed 148,000 with support from the residents is 130,000. So yes, Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. You said almost $2 million. It's 1.2, almost $1.2 million.
Yeah. Oh, well, you're right. Almost 1.2. I meant, yeah. Thank you. Good to have corrections. Yeah. Well, nobody was jumping out of their chairs. Anyhow, that way, that's how we get the fire truck, was by. Okay. So I knew that.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Some clarification around external borrowing, as some of this we usually do internal. Is there a reason why? Are there parameters around having to borrow some of these externally? What are we looking at here? The breathing apparatus and the design of the fire hall.
Through you, Deputy Mayor. So the SCBA's were, a report was brought forward by the chief in 2022 because the SCBA's were coming in higher than what we had budgeted for in that year. And it was already passed through council that we would borrow internally for that residual amount, 148,000, and that we just repay that over a few years. So I think that's in the borrowing from reserves column. And then the other amount that was borrowing externally is the 391,000 for the land. And the reason for that is and the 200,000 for the design. The reason for that is that's just a drop in the bucket for the whole project, and we'll probably have to mainly externally borrow for that entire project for the new build. And so we'll just add all that together at some point. Okay.
Thank you. So with that, we can move on to the next item, health services, and we'll have Jim Miller answer to that, but he'll be back a little later with more information about his other department. Is it Jim Miller gonna handle it? No? Okay. I saw his name on the bottom of the page that item was on, so how you got involved, Mr. Miller, I don't know. You're always getting involved, Mr. Miller. Okay, so we have Mr. Whiteman here is going to answer to that.
From what I can see, the only item there for this year's budget, given that the other item is a carryover from last year, is the exit stairs at 170 Main Street. That's the $9,000.
So that sounds like it's going to be something that we should get done definitely right away. Eh? That's how you look at it too? So,
Yes.
okay. Okay, thank you. We'll move right into Public Works from there. That's going to be budgeted $9,000. So, well, and so Leslie, if you'd like to go through some of your department there.
Yes, we are engaged with the GIS program, the PSD citywide program. We started late last year, and we also have something. We engaged in a virtual tour of that program this afternoon. So those are the implementation, budgeting, operating plan, salary plan module. The asset management portion of that is from a carryover from last year. So that is on the upper portion of that table there. The concrete pad is that we are considering some stations at the Public Works Department at 67 Sharp Road. At the moment, we are charging the vehicles inside our yard. We're considering putting them outside where it's more convenient. So that has been budgeted 15,000. Carryover for the enlargements for our garage doors. Because we have bigger equipment, we don't want to cause any damages to our to our building. So that was that carryover. We must do that this year. We have some work to do at Chatton Garage as well. In addition, for our winter operations, we require a sidewalk plow. That is a needed item. 2023. Our guide rails for is a continual program that we have been doing, I think, over a few years' time. So there are some guide rails that require some repair throughout the municipality. We put 53,000 there for that. In addition, there is sidewalk on the west side of Yonge Street that needs to be done near Proctor Place. That has been promised, I think, from the developer at one point. But we've estimated the amount for that sidewalk new asset to the municipality of 135,000. As well, we have also looked at our asset management plan, and we've looked at our bridges and our culverts throughout the municipality. And there's one particular one up in Hanson Road that requires quite extensive repair. And that is also on our asset management plan, and we intend to do that this year. With regard to the flood mapping, there is a program that has been put together, I guess, by the federal government, 50% match funding. So that would has been put at 50,000 for the municipal coffers this year. In addition, there are quite a few carryover roads projects, surface treatment roads projects that we need to do this
Right.
year as well.
Excuse me, perhaps we could just stop there for a moment,
Sure.
take a breather, because there might be some questions on. We've turned the page here, and maybe we can catch up a little bit.
Yes.
And if anybody has any questions, and we can review how these items are being paid for that we've just discussed. So back to where Leslie jumped in with the operation plan and 67 Sharp Street, the charging stations. And I see a hand going up, 2 hands going up. Anyhow, 3 hands. So Jeff, we'll ask you to go first. And if you have any questions for Leslie, go ahead.
Thank you. Specifically mentioning the charging pad, the fleet has 77 vehicles and 3 of them so far, I think, are EVs. Do we plan to have more EVs in the future?
I think at the moment it's could be considered a little bit of a pilot project. I anticipate that we will, if everything goes well, continue on that road. But I can't give a definitive answer that we would definitely do it, but I think we are intending to do that.
Okay. Given the outlook of, I think by 2030 or 2035, all new vehicles must be zero emissions. And unless we see a huge jump in hydrogen, it's probably going to be EVs. Is that factor weighing in?
Yes, it will have to factor in.
Okay. It just struck me, are we building this platform for 3 cars, or are we going to make it big enough for 5 or 6?
I would say that for 5 or 6, it's we're moving it to the boy, get my directions correct, the west side of the yard against the fence. So that is a fair bit of space. So yes, I think we're anticipating to do that.
Wonderful. Thank you.
And Mayor Ostrander, you had a question?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And through you, with regard to the Proctor Place sidewalk, the developer has paid their contribution to this sidewalk already. Is that correct?
As far as I know, there is some clarity that needs to be brought to that point. Possibly he has, given the agreements that have been reached, and maybe the CEO can answer that question.
Through you, Mr. Chair. We're certainly aware of the obligations that the municipality has with respect to the sidewalk. And what we've tried to do is we've tried to estimate what the cost is going to be to build that sidewalk. And it's about $135,000 or so. We're also aware that we have an individual agreement with a developer who has a responsibility to contribute towards that project. And we will ensure that whatever is due from that developer is secured. And we'll be responsible for the residual. As you can see with the project is estimated at $135,000 or so. And the residual will be paid out of development charges. So there will not be any impact to the taxpayers with respect to that project.
Right, I just want to make sure that we, pardon me, through you, Deputy Mayor, I just want to make sure we receive our appropriate contribution from the developer on this. And I don't believe that the development we're talking about has been assumed by the municipality yet, has it? I don't believe so.
Through the chair to committee of the whole. No, you're right. It is through the site plan control agreement that cost sharing is established, and to echo the CIO, we're mindful of that share contribution. And I have to check on the agreement and see if it's fully executed or not. The units are pretty much all occupied in there. But I'll have to check and see if it's been fully executed in terms of all the other discharges and securities. But that rate is in that site plan control bylaw. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Go ahead, Fred.
Through the chair, thank you. On page 2, you talked about Hanson Road culverts. And at a meeting not too long ago, some residents were complaining of flooding on Baldwin, alleging that some culvert had been removed and not replaced. Can you enlighten me? Is that in fact what happened? Or is this just a figment of imagination? If it did in fact happen, is there some plan in mind to restore the culvert to avoid future flooding instances?
Yes, we have done a lot of extensive looking at various culverts throughout the area based upon the asset management plan. So this one in Hanson Road was a particular concern. The one on Baldwin Road, I will have to go and look at that myself.
Okay.
And we'll do so. That's all I can answer at this stage at this point.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Yes, go ahead, Jeff.
You mentioned the flood hazard identification and mapping. Go ahead.
Is that what the acronym stands for?
Yes. Yeah, the FHIMP. I was wondering if you could explain what that is and the extent of it and maybe where we're at in the process.
As mentioned, it's a grant program. I believe it's coming from the government of Canada. And it is working, we're working through the Lower Trent Conservation Authority. They are overseeing it in terms of the project management, and they have assisted us with the application process. I think it is also involves other municipalities as well. So as mentioned, it's a 50-50 program. So we anticipate 100,000 and therefore 50,000. And we're working closely with the Conservation Authority.
So if that's complete, we'll basically have better floodplain mapping. Is that the goal?
Yes.
Council Butwell, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Hanson Road culvert at $250,000. Could you explain where that figure came from? How long of a section?
It is it's a box culvert structure. The cost, it could be a bit elevated at this point. But that's our best guess based upon what we saw, as well as what was written in the asset management plan. It might not be as much as that. It might be alternatives that we can look at in terms of bringing down some of those costs. But at this point, that is our best estimate.
you have a question?
One question, yeah, one question. Going back to working with Lower Trent on the flood hazard mapping. We haven't received, have we received the budget from Lower Trent? Do we have, I'm wondering, is there going to be extra cost involved from Lower Trent in order to work with them to do this mapping?
Not in terms, not from what I know, in terms of what the agreements, and our discussions with Lower Trent. They are providing the assistance and support and really overseeing that project. And so I think that is the essence of the program that that's been undertaken.
So the cost, the 50 plus the 50 from the government would cover then what we would, if there was a charge to Lower Trent, that would be all included then, nothing
Yes,
extra.
that's
Okay.
my understanding, yes.
Okay,
Yes, go ahead, Councillor.
Through you, Mr. Chair. The mapping, when is that anticipated is to be finished?
I believe this year. I can't give you a definite time of year, but this year, I think, yes.
Just this year, okay.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. Lots of good questions tonight, and then we are taking our time. I'm not going to push this through. We have time tonight to get through our what we've got here. And so just keep those questions coming, because it sure makes it easier next meeting to move ahead and make decisions on where we're going. Just to review this slightly is it's mostly there is some funds being paid out of reserves for some of these items, like the sharp door. I think that's a carryover. I remember that was to be done last year, but as well as the asset management is all reserves for that, right? So, and then moving down to sidewalk plow, that's a necessary, but now we're down to one plow, right? We'll be with this, we'll be back to having two and a part plow.
Yes.
Parts plow.
Yes.
Okay. And okay, and then we'll just go, the sidewalks is all through reserves, and the Proctor Place sidewalk, you've talked about it already, is again, it will be through DC. So we could probably, unless anybody has final, go ahead there.
Just to come back to sidewalks quickly, I'm assuming, and I shouldn't, so I'm assuming that in the operating budget, there is significant sidewalk money set aside.
Yes, our annual sidewalk program is slowly coming to an end. We have done, I think, quite extensive work over the years. And so there is, I think there's 75,000 in there for what is left, and maybe a little bit more for the years to come, but we're moving to the end of it.
Okay. And then at some point, we'll do a reanalysis of the sidewalks to start all
Definitely.
over again, right?
Definitely.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah, I saw that too, where I'm not even sure if there's 75,000, but I have it down as a question as well. It seems pretty light. I still think there's still they've done an excellent job, and whoever made the original deal with them, I think I know who, they've done very well, and but it'd be nice if they can finish it up next year. But I think when we get to that, we'll talk about it. But I'm glad the mayor brought it up too. So let's go right into the next session is road construction projects. This will take us a little time, maybe. So do you want to carry on there?
Sorry, my apologies. Single surface treatment as well as double surface treatment. There are some carryovers. I do believe that our staff has the wherewithal to get to all of the carryovers that we've had A lot of our staff is new in management positions, including myself, and so we intend to tackle that this year. As well, there is some new streetlights on some developments or new developments that we, very little bit of money there, but there's something there for that. In addition to our transportation master plan that has, I think, been outstanding for a bit of time, and we need to get to that as well in terms of an RFP and getting a consultant on board to assist us with all of that as well. So I guess where are we on? Yes. We do have the Loyalist Drive construction work that we intend to do, the Applewood Drive reconstruction as well as the parking lot west of Sobeys. That I think some of that parking area is not the best of condition, needs to be sorted out. We have also looking at the engineering work for Harbor Street and Wallace Drive and Marina Drive. And that I think will come in time to come, we hope, but not for this year. But we have the engineering work that we're completing for that. In addition to the Sobeys parking area, we have two electric vehicle charging stations that will be incorporated there as well. The monies are there, they're outlined there in terms of what all that's involved in terms of the monies that we've budgeted for there, the 900,000, 40,000 for the electric vehicles.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, what is the funding model for those charging stations, both for their being built, but also for, will people be paying to use them, or will they be free to public use?
I'll have to come back to you on that one. It's a program that we've made an application to through Hydro One, and we're hoping to get that money through Hydro One. I don't know the whole apparatus of that, and I can come back to you with regard to what we intend doing that, and as well whether it will be a level 2 or a level 3 charging station. I'm not 100% sure at this point.
I got an email from the Northumberland EV Society president today. He's putting together some numbers for Coburg in terms of what's available for grants regarding these things. So there might be some additional money. He's going to share that information with me. I will forward it to you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. That was a good question. Hope it pans out. Go ahead, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and through you. I'm enthused that we are getting at least as many roads done as our goals in order to keep up with, in theory, deteriorating roadways, in theory. So thank you for that. I am concerned about Harbor, Wallace, and Marina. We've had those discussions. The neighbors in that area of the community and the visitors to the community, especially the ones that use Harbor Street, are noting the deterioration along Harbor Street. And I know that's a significant project, given the underground works, given the stormwater. So thank you for including the design. Hopefully we'll see it for reconstruction in the next budget season. My question is there anything in here for the design, the underground works for Prince Edward Street? That's a county project in partnership with the municipality. I think they're working through the EA process now. So I'm just curious, are we including that in this budget or perhaps it's already done? I don't know.
Yes, so it's only the engineering work with regard to the utilities, so the water and sanitary, that is for our costs. I stand corrected, but I'm pretty sure that there will be a PIC in February. And that construction for County Road 64 will be done in 2024. Linda, maybe you can correct me on what we have with regard to the costs for the engineering work. Have we, was that a carryover for some of that work?
There was $267,000 carryover for the projects that were ongoing. And we did bring that to council for carryover at the end of the year.
We also have the bulk water station that we going to tender for, construct this year as well. So that is all to do this year. I mentioned the transportation master plan. And I think I spoke about the surface treated roads, singles, the doubles, and the list of projects that we intend to do this year. So that I think is there. What else is there here? Yes, I think that's it.
So speaking of roads, my question earlier that was out of order. I was just noticing that the amount of money we spend on roads, it's noted at about $3.8 million there. That's half of the capital budget. And I guess this is more of a comment more than a question. How do we grow in Brighton without growing roads all the time? Like it's an enormous amount of ongoing investment. And so it's something that we should think about not only when we're budgeting, but when we're strategic planning, I guess, is how can we grow upward instead of outward, or else we'll just always be paying for pavement. I did have a question specifically though about streetlights. You mentioned streetlights and it came up several points here. Are these streetlights going to be LEDs, and are they going to be light pollution friendly, like angled downward or pointed downward lights?
Yes, they will be. They will be LED. They will be, I think, the latest in terms of what it is, that whatever environmentally sensitive considerations have to be. Yes.
Go ahead. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Thank you, through you, Chair. First off, I guess I would like to endorse what the mayor has said about Harbor, and in particular Prince Edward. Everywhere I go, I hear about the condition of those roads, and I'm delighted to see that you have provision in there for engineering. I'm going to sit here and pray that the calendar moves quickly so that they get addressed quickly so that I don't have to hear about them anymore. Here. Thank you. The EV charging stations at Sobe lot, I think it's a great idea. I mean, clearly the world is going that way. I'm a bit of a car nut, as you probably know, although I'm not into EVs yet. As you are well aware, there are 3 different levels of charging stations, and Teslas are different than North American versus Asian. So it's really level 2s and 3s. And then you get into the charging time and how long people are sitting there. I'd like them to stay there a little while so they shop in the downtown core, but I don't want them sitting there so long that they're getting angry and getting a bad image of us. My research says the vast majority of municipalities like ours charge a rate. I think we need to consider doing that so we get some recovery for this investment. And I guess the last item I'd like to ask about is the transportation master plan. Could you give me some insight as to what the scope of that is? I mean, are we looking at some alternate bypass when people get diverted off the 401 so we don't have trucks running through the core? Or is it really traffic calming measures and speed control measures within the urban area itself. I just need some definition of what this $200,000 is going to accomplish.
My best answer at this stage is that there have been concerns locally. And I think those are more sort of traffic impact related studies that we're required to do, maybe on a more broader level, as opposed to transportation master plan. Whereas the transportation master plan is sort of more of an overview of where it is that we intend going as related to growth and development. So I think it's that type of aspect, whether we're looking at is a John Road that the side road coming out
Okay,
there.
so this is
That's
more of a broader approach.
broader,
We're going to look seriously about extending John to 64
Yes,
with the egress into the industrial park to keep
Right.
the heavy stuff out of the downtown core and that
Yes.
sort of thing.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay,
that's cool.
excuse me, we'll just, the mayor can enlighten us on some information on that.
Yeah,
So,
this predates Mr. Whiteman, so
Mhm.
we'll excuse him, and I'll try to answer your question.
Okay.
A lot of the transportation master plan stuff came out of the previous term of council, and the want to promise a stop sign in every driveway in order to slow people down. So council asked for a transportation master plan to talk about calming measures, talk about best practices for traffic in the downtown area. So what I think what we'd call the urban area of the community, in particular, pointing out places like Ontario Street and Main Street. I believe the John Street concept is being looked at through the secondary planning process in the planning department. And I'm getting a head nod from our planner, and he has a comment. That's just shocking to me. Well, it's just shocking. And with regard to moving traffic away from the downtown core during 401 shutdown, that would be left with the county, the EDRs and the province. The EDRs are dealt with through the province and the county.
Okay.
There is a want to move hours to Telephone Road, but in order to make Telephone Road passable, it's like 5 years ago, it was a $15 million project. So that's probably a $30 million project today. The county did seek a federal grant at the time, and was denied that grant. So we live with what we have for now until such time as we can find the money or get the money to re-engineer Telephone Road. Because as you know, Telephone Road between Crammy and Brighton is hilly and windy, and so lots of restructuring has to be done before that can be an EDR, but that is the wish at some point in the future.
I don't know if the third lane that's going to happen someday on the 401 will help with any of this, but there's going to be more vehicles, and third lane might just open up one for people to get through. But I don't know, it could help. So, but we've been waiting for that. Actually, that was announced a couple of years ago. Yeah, no, the third lane on the 401.
All the bridge building going on along the 401 right now is to expand that highway.
Yeah.
So we'll see it happen one day, but maybe we'll all be alive when it
Yeah,
happens.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you through the chair. So thank you for the clarification. So basically, it's a review of traffic calming measures, which I'm having a bit of difficulty with. In some other municipalities, they've simply put a page up on their website, and if some neighborhood wants a stop sign or whatever, they fill out the form, hit the submit button, and then somebody goes and looks at it. I'm not dismissing it as a worthy cause. Please don't misunderstand me. But when we're struggling to find funds, I guess my view is, rather than doing that traffic study, I'd rather redivert the funds to support our new fire truck.
Okay, Mary, any follow up?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And I've certainly heard that comment that it was in particular to the city of Belleville that was able to do this. I did reach out to the mayor of the city of the then mayor of the city of Belleville, and asked that very specific question. That process through the internet came out of their $500,000 traffic master plan. So I think I think that's what happens after you do a traffic master plan, and maybe we'll get there, but I think we need to know in Brighton what the best course of action is, and these studies always seem shockingly expensive. And you never get used to it, Byron, I can tell you that.
Yeah, it just seems to me if they've paid for the study, let's just take the advice for free and try it out for a year and utilize the funds for our new fire truck. Okay, yeah.
Okay, did you have any questions over here? Did I see? Oh,
Well,
you did. Go
I
ahead.
did, but I think that my question will fall under operations, so I think I'll leave it for later. Thanks.
Okay. So you still continuing on here? Are you? We haven't talked about Main Street yet.
Yes, that's the only other one is the one on Main Street. The water main that we intend to do
So
for this year.
well, there's a number of roads. I have a question, Leslie. It was last year's budget. I remember discussing this too. A lot of the work is tendered out, but we tried to do a lot of these road, mostly repairs, I'll call them, that then full road engineering and construction. But again, are we going to have enough? I can refer to it as boots on the ground of our own people that can get some of the work done without having these continue to be backlogged. It's where? Okay. Well, I know I'm jumping the gun there, but
So
there's two guns here.
Mr. Chair, I'll just jump in.
Yeah.
The bottom line is that the more boots on the ground, the more work we can do. And we bypass the whole issue of contracting it out. And what we found over the course of the last few years is that by being out in the ditches or on the sides of the road, we can be more effective and less costly than contracting some of this out. So throughout the budget process, for those who've been around, they know that I have one night with myself and council to talk about a number of different issues, organizational, strategic planning, all kinds of issues of that nature. And during that evening, I'll be talking about some organizational changes. I'll be talking about boots on the ground. I'll be making various recommendations in that regard. So that's coming.
Okay. Good. Thank you for that. Go ahead, Councillor.
Through you, Mr. Chair, what qualifies a road to be resurfaced, fixed, repaired? It was probably just under a year ago, I had the unfortunate, fortunate and not so unfortunate. I went to True North Daylilies, and the GPS on leaving there took me, I think, down Darling Road. And I thought I was going to lose my car in the washboard effect down that road. So I'm just wondering, did that road ever get taken care of? Is it on the list somewhere to be dealt with? What qualifies a road to hit the list?
Yes, I've maybe I'm been around here a little bit too premature. I have received a call on another road as well. Basically we look at it in terms of the asset management plan as well as our roads needs of study, but that is a bit outdated as it stands. So our intention was to do a roads needs study this year to update that information. And we would do that internally. That's our intention instead of going out externally. We have the wherewithal to do it. And that's our intention at this point. So I'll make note of that. And anything else that you may want to know, please let us know.
I know that True North Daylilies themselves had some huge drainage ditch issues there to the point where they couldn't access their mailbox at that point. The whole experience down there was quite a fun trip in a little mini convertible I was driving through. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Castleman has something.
I thought I'd just jump in here and fill in a few little gaps. Over the course of the last number of years, what we've tried to do is we've tried to take a longer term approach with respect to road replacement and put together some long-term plans. So as an example, we have a 7-year surface treatment plan. We have a 3 to 5 year capital program where we tackle what I'll call hard services. The bottom line is best made plans. We can't predict the weather and can't predict how a road is going to break up in the springtime. So while we make the plans from a capital perspective or a maintenance perspective, you know, the guys have to go out in March and April when the spring comes along, and they have to adjust on the fly because roads break up differently given different weather conditions. So we try and put together the long-term plan, and then we have to adjust on the fly depending on the circumstances.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry, Merrick, go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and through you. Mr. Whiteman, we have 28.7 kilometers of gravel roads in the municipality. Is there a thought or a plan to surface treat those at some point?
Yes. Yes,
So the want will be to surface treat all of our roadways in the rural area,
based upon need and based upon budget.
right?
Yes.
And no doubt based upon usage, some of those gravel
Sure.
roads. I can think of one that has maybe is 3, 4, 5 kilometers long and has maybe 6 houses on it. So that
And
would be-
usage, yes,
right,
that's,
okay. The other comment, Deputy Mayor, I would make is on page 39, it notes that through our asset management plan, we should be spending 2.2, almost $2.3 million on roads, and we're spending 2.1. So we have a budgetary deficit then of $160,000, an infrastructure deficit, an actual quantifiable for a change infrastructure deficit of $160,000. And I'll ask if council had the will to put that $160,000 in your roads budget, could you find roads to resurface or to re-engineer with that 160 grand?
no doubt.
Thank you.
Can I just add to that? We can add as many kilometers as we want. How many staff are we going to add? 160,000. Is that what you're thinking? How many more kilometers?
I'm thinking that $160,000 would get us another few kilometers of rural roadway resurfaced or restructured. I don't know. And I'm not the person with the map in front of me that can tell you which road should be. But I think that if we're not budgeting to what our asset management plan tells us we should be budgeting to, then we are purposefully budgeting to get behind.
Exactly.
And why would we want to start this term of council doing that?
Right. I totally agree. We've had that.
Especially when we have the knowledge in front of us now.
Right. And we've had that discussion that we keep getting farther behind instead of ahead. So I'm good with that too. We'll see where that 160,000 can go. May I ask where we could find that money?
You just did. Ask Linda. It's there. You're right. It's in the budget, right? Well, you said it's not. No, sorry. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. It needs to be added, and maybe the next meeting you'll have given some thought to that.
Mr. Chair, I'm just going to jump in here. As we go through the process, council is going to ponder additions and deletions and amendments to the budget, and that's all good. Make those assessments, make some good decision-making at the end of the day. If you're not sure about a particular project, but you have a need, we talked a little bit about, okay, well, we want to do an additional road work of $160,000. Well, you need to challenge staff to go away for the next meeting and come up with a game plan, how they're going to do that. But we need a little bit of thought process and time to figure that out. So just figure out where the priorities are, and then we'll figure out the financing plan.
So,
Director of Finance has a comment, Deputy Mayor.
oh, thank you. Go ahead, Linda.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just wanted to revisit that just for a second. So Yes, we are only doing 2.1 million in asphalt roads. And our plan says that we should be doing 2.26. But that's a paved road, so you're not going to get much for 160,000 in a paved road. However, we also should be doing 1,070,000 per year for surface treatment roads, and we are having some carryover, but in reality, we're doing 999,000, which has been kind of a static amount. So if you're going to increase something, I would ask you to please try to increase the surface treatment roads at least to the 1,070,000. So add 71,000 to our surface treatment road program. And then make that our static amount in budgets for years, for the next few years, because we haven't increased that in about 4 years. So that might be where you want to start. That's just my suggestion, and maybe staff can take that away. Sorry, in addition, we're also doing some asphalt work on Main Street when we do the water work, but that's all found under your water budget because we only have to open the road in that area for that water main project. So we're getting a little bit of paved roads in there through the water department because of that project.
Yeah, I thought we might discuss Main Street a little bit more, but is there more to discuss at this point? We have, Main Street was, we were great to secure a lot of, the federal or provincial funding for that. And engineering is taking place now or has been. And
Yes.
when do we foresee that being, first comes, I know the infrastructure before we even talking surface and that, but where before we see anything happening, when do you see that? When the public
First,
sees
second
anything
quarter, go out to tender.
What's that?
First, second quarter, go out to tender.
Okay. No, thank you. Yeah, well, there'll be only one meeting. Next week. All right, so I think we've completed this section before moving on to parks. Is that about it? So we've discussed where this money is coming from somewhat, but we're looking at public works capital of 4,658,000. But the road construction we just finished was 3,800,000. And you can see where the funds are going to be coming from. It leaves $1 million for and $89 for the residents to pay. But we are moving ahead, and it's great that what's been done in the past too. So we talked about sidewalks, but the roads have, I'm really happy. I'm happy to see what's been going on too. So you're jumping in and you're getting at it. That's great, Leslie. Thank you. Okay,
Thank you.
anyone? And the mayor has another question?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and through you, and just to speak to Director Whittafield's comment with regard to surface treatment roads and the deficit there. I would like to see in the next draft that additional amount of money for surface treatment roads in the budget. I just don't want to get further and further and further behind. When we know.
I think we don't need anything on that. That's
Unless the rest of my friends around the table say they don't want to see that. No, I think
everybody's in favor of that, correct?
Can I ask for, are you talking about the 160 or the 160 plus 70, 230?
just the 7. If we put, I mean, the only thing we could do with 160 would be put it into reserves for a future opportunity. Not a bad idea, but I think there's a better way to do that, as I have mentioned for the last 20 years or so. But we'll have that conversation another time. And that, just for everyone's information, that's just a conversation about dedicating a 1% levy increase for road for critical infrastructure replacement. that has always been a good idea, but we're not going to do it this year. And that's been going on for 20 years now. So, so for this conversation and for the next look at our capital budget, just $70,000 for the rural roadways, for the surface treatment roadways. And we can have a conversation about how to top up that other amount later.
Yeah, 'cause
I won't forget.
Well, I've got it written down too. I don't want to forget it either. Because once again, as you highlighted earlier, we're doing $4 million worth of work and the taxpayer is paying less than 25%. So that's a pretty good deal for your buck, I would think. So I'm going to say I'd like to see it on both. That's
Okay. With that, we'll move along. Mr. Miller, you got another chance here to come forward and present Parks and Recreation. So, and the next hour is yours.
Okay, well, see if we can fill it. Basically, we have a bunch of projects. I think there's 14 in total, for a total price of $769,250. Of that, there is tax support of $242,500, and that's amounts from the bottom of the page here, the long sheet. So I'm just going to start from the top and go through each. As you're well aware, we have quite a lot of pavement over at King Edward Park. Now, we addressed the issue of the drainage out in front of the community center, but there's still a fair amount of work that needs to be done to that parking lot, especially near the tennis courts and that whole section. It's probably 30 years old at least. That pavement has been there well since before I was there. So that we were decided that we put 125,000 in. Now that's tax support, and we would see what we could do to use that money as best we can to remediate that area. Going down the page, we're looking at Memorial Park with our new stage. It's been mentioned a few times that a lot of the bands and performers are using the east side of the stage to load up all of their equipment, as opposed to taking it around the sidewalk around the back. So we're looking at installing a loading ramp from the sidewalk to the east side of the stage. So that's $20,000 tax support. Pickleball courts, they're opened, but we're finding that there's just a little too much green space behind the courts, and so we've got a lot of comments how nice the courts are, but they do get a lot of mud on them because of the weather and the fact that they're going off the court to get the ball and whatnot. So we're suggesting we pave that perimeter area that's inside the fence, so it's all asphalt.
They're also concerned about the safety.
And safety too, yeah. So that's $25,000 tax support. Washroom renovations. We're looking at redoing the washrooms, renovating them, bringing them up to standard, what everybody's expecting, because I mean those washrooms they've got to be 30 years old. And we did try to get a Trillium grant for that amount, and we did not get it. But there is another round of capital funding that they've announced. The deadline's May 17th, and we're going to try it again. So if we can get that funding, we'll be able to do it, and there won't be any tax money spent. If not, it might be an item for next year. Parks master plan. Everybody knows we're doing that right now. We're probably 75% done. We've got a bit more to do, and hopefully in the next month and a half, 2 months, we'll have that hopefully done.
Security cameras, again, that's another carryover. It is, happy to say that they've been working on that even today. And hopefully, within the next 2 weeks, we will have our security system, our new security system up and running at King Edward Park outside. So it should cover all of our entities out in King Edward Park. Need to replace a turn mower for the parks. It's part of our equipment replacement. We try to replace our mowers every 5 years. They get a lot of use, a lot of hours on. So that's just to keep up with things. And that would be parkland reserves. This other next item is from the tornado committee. Restoration of the water fountain at King Edward Park. I guess it used to be a water fountain back in the day, and it was turned into a garden, flower garden. I'm not sure what date. So I've been asked to get some pricing on what it would take to restore it back into a fountain, and do some work on the interlocking brick around it. So I've put 15,000 in. Under the community center, we're looking at with the donation that we received from Owen Gibb of 60 new chairs. It was well received. Those chairs are definitely more comfortable than the ones we have. So we're thinking of purchasing another 100, which would get us to 160, which would do probably 85% of the events that we have there. As well as replacing some of the rectangle tables, which get a lot of use and wear and tear out of them. So we would be taking that money out of reserves. So there's no tax support there. The columbarium, it was tendered last year and awarded. But it was later in the year, and we just felt with the foundation work and the work that's involved in that columbarium that they would we'd be better served doing it this spring. So the company is holding their price for what they tendered, and we'll have a new columbarium up at Mount Hope Cemetery, hopefully in May. Trail work just north of Castle Ridge subdivision, so that would be south of the cemetery. We did some planning last year. We invested some money into getting it a design made, a proper design from a trail builder. So that has been accomplished. I'm actually meeting with Lower Trent Conservation Friday to work on a permit, and hopefully we will be able to put a new trail in this year there. And the Butler Creek South subdivision off of Cedar Street. We're anticipating that that subdivision will be underway, and we want to do some design work for the trail system down there this year as well, so that we can build another trail hopefully the following year. Dredging project. It's a carryover from last year. The town of Coburg will be coming in using their dredging unit to dredge our municipal marina and boat launch. It hasn't been done since the 70s. So we've taken some core samples this year, and for the most part, I would say 90% of it is not contaminated based on the core samples. So that is good. We can reuse that soil. So we're hoping to get that project done mid-July. We're at the mercy of all the different departments from the government. There's 5 different agencies we had to do the permits from, and we can't start any earlier than July 15th, and we have to end October 1st, all because of fish spawning. And then Presqu'île government dock improvements. Again, it's a popular spot over there, growing more popular every year. It's tired. It needs to be redone. I'm looking at redoing some of the structures there and putting new benches and that. Something like we've done at Casey's Lane. using the garden ideas and the seating and whatnot over there. The residents have commented the last couple of years about it, and they'd be quite happy to see it and help me out on getting it done. And that's it.
That's good. I just, while we're on that last subject, have you been working with the local residents by the government dock? I know there was a lot of chatter and comments about it during election time, and where they would like to see certain things done. I know there's some are pretty extravagant in what they want to have done, but are you going to do anything in the actual dock area, or is that dock is the municipalities, right?
The government dock down there,
Yeah.
yes.
Everybody calls it the government dock. I guess we're government, but
Yeah, it is ours.
yeah. And then playground equipment that was brought up a number of times. So I'm just asking what 20,000. You did mention what the scope basically would be, but
Well, the playground equipment that's there is fine. It's only 4 years old. But I'd like to move a couple of the benches around, put some more attractive garbage cans in, some seating, some attractive picnic tables around the area, do some landscaping work. Just to pretty it up, so to speak, so it makes it a main focal point in that
No.
area.
no, indeed. Anyway, I like your budget. You've really a lot of good things going on, the trails, that type of thing, but I'll ask if anyone around the table. Let's start with Jeff here. He's
Thank you.
spotted him right away.
Thank you, Chair. Through you. Thank you for this, Director Miller. I have two questions. One, because you mentioned Casey's Lane, and because Deputy Mayor Anderson mentioned the community around Government Dock is quite active. I wonder, it comes to mind that on Casey's Lane, there is a lot of public input into what would happen there. Are you doing something, pursuing some kind of input from the residents around Government Dock?
They're the ones that have put a bug in my ear the last couple of years to get this in. I've had a couple of meetings with some of the residents there. And we had a meeting last spring with getting ideas, and I do have a design now. We've had to be able to do it internally. Samantha Deck was able to do a proper landscape, overview. So we just have to take that and try to do most of it in-house. So I'm quite happy with it, and I think the neighbors are too. I'll be
Excellent.
taking it out to them.
No, that's good.
My-
Budget.
Anything else?
My second question is with relation to the renovations you mentioned renovations both at the Memorial Park stage and to get the loading ramp, right?
Yes, it'll be a loading ramp from the sidewalk to the side of that stage.
Yeah.
It's not an accessible, walkway because we have one already.
Yeah.
This is just to get because most of the band members and performers, they park along Veterans Way. And of course, the natural way is to lug their equipment up that way. And right now it's like a 2-foot.
And you're also talking about the fountain there, so moving water there. And you're also talking about renovating the canteen. Now, the Sustainability Advisory Committee was in the process of getting together some ideas about how to get water bottle filling stations, like sustainable water, not like a water fountain, but also something you can put your canteen into. Somewhere in Brighton. And so some of the members of the committee were looking into what Quinny West recently did. They were getting some general estimates. And then the election happened and the committee went away. And I'm wondering, is this a good point at which to bring this up? Since you're thoroughly renovating, especially the canteen, that seems like the best place to put a water bottle filling station. If you're doing the bathrooms there anyway, the water pipes will be open. Is it possible to get a quote about what it would take to get a sustainable water fountain or drinking station there?
Yeah, you're looking at about $3,000.
Okay, is that something we could?
Examples. Well, yeah,
we
we
could
could add it to the outside of it.
My kids do.
No, thanks. That's a good question, Jeff, and thanks for bringing that up. Go ahead.
Thank you. Just, I want to talk about the trail at Castle Ridge for a second, Jim. Is that going to connect to anything? Is there going to be a connecting link there?
Well,
For somewhere else, or is it just a trail on its own?
well, as you're aware, we purchased land last year. That little piece of land that was between the two houses, the first house beside the cemetery.
Yeah.
The second one, there's a piece of land. We purchased that. So that will be one trailhead. It'll take you through, meander through the forest up to the top where we've got a couple of holding ponds. Now there is an existing crusher dust trail that's behind the houses. A lot of people don't know about it, but there is one and it's
Okay.
accessible at 2 points. What we're going to do is we're going to extend that to the north, right through all the trees and bushes and take it around. So what you'll have is 2 loops. One loop will be, again, cinder block and crusher dust. It'll be accessible, where the nature one obviously can't be because of the steepness and the slopes.
Right. Yeah.
So that's our game plan. Like I said, I did bring a trail builder in, and we have pretty much everything ready to go.
Okay. One more question. Peace Park, just making sure, is that the one
Oh,
on Cedar?
Sorry.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's okay. Is that on Cedar or is that the
No,
one down
Huron Street,
Huron?
Huron.
Okay.
It's yeah, it's one of those parks that nobody really thinks of because it's in there, right?
Yeah.
It hasn't that equipment. We did not redo that equipment years ago when we did most of the other parks again because there was such limited use. Now I think with the subdivisions that are going in that area and a lot of younger families are in that area. It's time to spruce it up, put a new
Okay.
climber in there and a new swing set.
Yeah, that was my
Yeah.
next question. I know years ago it was used very, very little, but like you say, now that there's more development going
Yeah,
on there.
and
probably is
it's like Kinsman Park. We put that in there and of course I got comments about it not being used much, but I know the next couple of years with those subdivisions going on at
Yeah.
Cedar, it's gonna get used a lot.
more. Yeah, thank you.
I just wanted to say that my kids use both of those parks and they love it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Mayor Ostrander, you have a question?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just a couple questions, a couple comments. With regard to the Memorial Park stage, Deputy Mayor, you and I had conversations with one of the natural gas distribution companies, and they suggested there may be some money available. So I will be sure to loop you into a conversation with a rep at that organization because she was actually quite enthusiastic about writing checks. So we'll take their money, and they just want a project to be able to hang their hat on. They're not looking for naming rights. They just want to be able to come out and take a photo op and say, look what wonderful things we're doing in Brighton.
And this project has been designed in-house by our public works staff, so it is ready to go.
May I add another comment? I have heard the water bottle filling station comment a couple of times. So if we can add 1 or 2 or 3 in the community of various parks, I think we would be wise to do so. It just any opportunity to get plastic water bottles out of people's arsenal is probably a good idea. And when we're thinking about redeveloping parks, the overriding comment I get from parents with tweens, I guess we'll say, kids between 10 and 15 are basketball nets. We don't have enough basketball nets in the community. And, you know, I honestly, I don't get it. I didn't play basketball, but it is an up and coming sport. And it is one that the kids in our community are looking for. Including at the Peace Park, by the way. There's a lot of younger, not climber friendly children, but in that age bracket looking for alternative things to do that frankly don't involve screens. So that's a good thing.
I know the schools are busy with those kids, those basketball kids. So Smithfield with the new park coming. So anyhow, I won't go there. No. So we've just finished Parks and Rec. And you got it under $1 million, so that's great.
Emily.
And reserves will cover 205,000 of it, and all kinds of other departments, even DCs are 9,000, and then you were hoping to, and the grants, we haven't put any grant activity in there yet, have we? No. So, 150, you're really counting on that, aren't you? Well, you're very good at getting grants for Parks and Rec, so I think you probably will too. So that leaves a balance of $242,000. Very good. Thank you. Anyone else? Final words?
Well, I did have a question, but you missed me earlier.
Oh, I did.
Well, just a comment. I would just suggest that maybe yourself and the mayor push the gas company, and then we can take those 20,000 and put basketball nets in Peace Park. Maybe you could ask for a little more than 20,000. I know there's a couple of other things we could use there.
We asked for a lot more than that, but anyhow, we weren't at liberty to take any money that day, no. So anyhow, I'm sure the mayor will be on the phone. Okay, we'll move along then. Who's up? Planning. Mr. Walsh. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, Committee of the Whole. So on page 4 of the ledger for the budget, top column being planning, we have to see a list of the capital items listed there. Secondary plan, that's a carryover from last year, if not the year before as well. It is a multi-year project, and it's a secondary plan to detail the greenfield areas as designated in the official plan for the municipality of Brighton. So greenfields are pretty much as they sound. They're open areas that are available for development, fresh new development as opposed to redevelopment. That secondary plan would identify future streets and servicing and land uses, and coordinate development efforts across multiple landowners and avoid some of the inefficiencies that come with not having that coordinated plan. So the original budget was something like $250,000. So this is the remnant of that. There has been some requests from the consultant for additional services related to that, with some change of scope to that project. Mayor mentioned earlier about the John Street overpass, and we have asked them to take a look at that. That doesn't coincide within a greenfield area per se, so there may be some benefit in the transportation plan picking up some of that level of detail. But we will see what we can get done through the secondary plan at the same time. So we are making efforts internally to coordinate that between the infrastructure and planning. Second item there is the public engagement policy. Again, that's and procedure. That again, that's a carryover. It's half the rate that it was from last year's budget. RFP did go out. We had no takers, 0. So, and it was a rather detailed RFP, thinking that would be very clear and straightforward. But yeah, they're very busy out there. We just didn't get any takers. So had some random inquiries and things like that. But so this now being half the budget, and internal discussions is that maybe because the RFP was so detailed that we can maybe finish the first draft of policy and procedure in-house, and then have a consultant do the actual facilitation and get an objective outside view. There are specialists, there are experts in this area, so it's probably best to have that outside expertise and objectivity in crafting this. Ultimately, the deliverable will be not only a procedure, but also an official plan amendment, because under the Planning Act, you can vary from the regulations of the Planning Act, but only if you have an official plan policy in place. So that's the end deliverable. So I do have some interest recently from DM Wills, maybe to do something like that, but it's the we're interested in making sure that we get something in place. We've been practicing alternative public engagement to date procedurally, but without perhaps the same extent of policy backing that would be beneficial. And there are some other merits to doing it as well that haven't been fully discussed, but will become apparent through the unrolling of the project if council approves it. There was money also for an EIS, and that's a carryover. We found that there's been some errors in the EP zoning and boundaries, and we've had a couple examples of that. So it's important to get it cleaned up. And we've had a bit of a recent example where this would be another benefit. And I had some conversations with Lower Trent to get a terms of reference for it. It didn't look like maybe the value was there going forward, but more recent issues suggest that it would be. So I'd like to see that going forward. And I think we can do it below the 55 as a result of some recent conversations, but we'll endeavor to pare that back as best as we can with this revised terms of reference. Community improvement plan for affordable housing. That amount is really kind of a starter amount. We really have no experiential basis for saying what amount would work for those programs. But I think it's a good start. And once we have some interested parties, we can have some working experience and see where we go in 24 after this, if we get some initial takers on that. The Google SketchUp and InDesign software, those are as they sound, design oriented software. Mr. Miller made reference that our planner has some design experience, so some essential landscape architecture type background, and others. There was some and is some recent in the last few years emphasis on some aspects of planning act called development permit approvals, and they are an innovative thing that combines minor variances and site plan, but you need to have more design details mapped out, and most municipalities are using Google SketchUp for that. It's an easy piece of software to use, and it's becoming a little more universal, easier to use than say AutoCAD or something that's very robust but cumbersome. And land banking initiatives, we've had some discussions, I think, and we have a motion of council from previous council to take some first steps on that. And so there can be more discussions on that. But again, the land banking initiatives are a matter of looking at making those purchase and sale offers, or making right first option type agreements. So low cost efforts to at least getting some initial steps going forward. On that basis, we can begin to negotiate with parties who we may determine appropriate for facilitating some affordable housing projects. And the last line are dealing with computers, just replacement of old computers that are needing upgrades. So that's the planning capital works. I can stop there if there's one of any questions, or Mr. Chairman, I can go through the whole thing if you like, and then field questions.
Thank you, Paul. That was very good. You can pause there. I'll let Jeff, he's been anxiously trying to jump in there, and I've been holding him back. Go ahead, Jeff.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Director. I had a few different questions. The public engagement, as you know, but I'll let everyone else know, I was very close to submitting an RFP myself for that, but my company wasn't set up well enough yet to actually go through the entire process. So if you are working on that in-house, I'd love to be part of that. That's one of the reasons I wanted to be on council, was so I could help better public consultation. With land banking, what is $20,000 going to do? It's certainly not enough for a down payment on anything.
No, the notion, and it is very preliminary, but the notion is it would give us something to work with in terms of the deposits on agreements, and to keep those, and then work with those agreements, maybe develop some concept plans, and then we have something to work with in consulting with purveyors and vendors, and seeing if we can't get to the next steps after that. And we might have some patient support of landowners who are willing to work with us in that regard, hoping.
I have a question, Paul. In the past council, we had some targets, or you had some targets that you were looking at and potentials. Did we ever, were we able to follow up on any of those with aggressively, or we just identified them?
Yeah, there were a couple of sites that we had in mind, but more work has to be done on that.
Okay. So we have some insight. Anyone else have a question for Paul? I'm not gonna miss you. Go ahead, Councilor. Go ahead.
Not so much a question, just a comment. Pleased to see the second pillar of the community improvement plan getting underway. So that just leaves maybe downtown revitalization at some point. So that'll be next year's project then. This one just talks about affordable housing.
I believe that was council's priority of the affordable housing. And I don't know if that was necessarily just a placeholder for CIP in general, or if it was meant to be explicitly for affordable housing. I can double back with the Director of Finance and CAO on that, but you know, ultimately anybody can come forward to council and through a CIP program with a good business case, maybe ask for something. And if that makes, you know, if it can fit within that budget line, then and council feels that it's a priority, then I think we're always open to discussion.
Go ahead, Ed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to further to Councillor Wilden's question about the amount of that land banking initiative at $20,000, the generally accepted amount for the deposit, they tend to be between 4.5% and 7.5% of the total value. I appreciate that there may be landowners out there who may be willing to work with less, but I would say that the last few years have taught us in this industry that that is less and less so. So that might be a line item that we may wish to increase if we want to seriously undertake this as a project.
Good question, actually. Very good question, or good information too. Mayor, you have another question?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So let's ask the question, where should that dollar be?
It depends how much we want to spend.
Right. So,
Right.
I mean, we're talking about, you know, we're probably not talking about one building lot, right? Where we'd be talking about a significant piece of land in the built boundary. So, you know, a down payment on that is like $100,000 is my guess, right? Give or take.
Just to use as an example, properties that are currently for sale within the built boundary. There's 3 in a row that I've spoken to you all about before. Altogether, it would be about $1.2 million to purchase all of them. So 5% of that. That's just 60 grand. A theoretical. So.
And that's one opportunity, right? Assuming we only have one opportunity come up in the course of the next year or so. So I'm, you know, this is the time to be putting a placeholder in the budget and having that discussion. Doesn't, you know, nothing's written in stone. We're not passing a budget tonight. We're just taking a look at things and seeing where it ends up. So if 60 grand is the number it needs to be, then I think that's where we should put it. And if it's 100 grand that it needs to be there, that's where we should put it.
Yeah, I would say that I would hope that we have opportunity to do more than one such transaction. And so I would say 100,000 would be a good round number with the hope of more than one opportunity.
Okay. Finance, Linda, if you have any comment on this. You can find the money.
At this stage, this line item is entirely tax supported. So
Yeah.
that's where we would be finding the money. So everybody needs to be conscious of that decision. like I said, we're not passing the budget tonight. We're just taking a look at the numbers and the staff will round these or roll these numbers up and come back with us and let us know what damage we possibly doing.
Okay, go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry, Bobby. Go ahead.
I'm all for land banking and for affordable housing projects. My concern comes with the current Bill 23 and the impact that that has on affordable housing and how they are taking some of that power away, some or all of that power away from us. Is it even prudent to be looking at land banking at this stage when we've got those kind of obstacles in front of us?
That's a valid point. Thank you. Mayor?
I think what Bill 23 is doing is taking money out of the pocket of the upper tier for the purpose of affordable housing, but it's not. We never the lower municipalities, Brighton included, never had any provincial support, provincial funding support for affordable housing purposes. It was always going to be our responsibility to find the land so that we could partner with the county. And now the county, of course, won't get that funding support from the province, but the county also knows it has a responsibility to build out affordable housing options. So if Brighton goes to the county of Northumberland, says, here's the land we have for banking purposes, it will behoove the county then to put us in their plan for affordable housing projects. And where they find the money is where they find the money. And that's, well, it's going to be, frankly, it's going to be from you and I at the end of the day, when the county passes its budget. So, especially with the new Bill 23 regime, it looks like more and more that's where the money is going to come from. Although, the province has a duty to fund affordable housing as well. So it could be coming from another source of provincial funding.
Okay.
That said, we know that this provincial government will want to ensure that there are private sector people involved in whatever affordable housing options we come up with. So that will be, and again, that's on the county though. I mean, the only responsibility Brighton has is to find land on which to put affordable housing options. So.
Okay.
This is going to be a sleep on it. Yeah, well, I don't think we're jumping at 100,000 tonight. So go. Well, I'm not.
Right.
Anyhow, go ahead.
Thank you. But I kind of agree too, if we don't start squirreling away a little bit of this at some point too. And I agree with Bobby as well. What are we going to do with it? But then again, property isn't going to go down in price over the next few years either. So it's kind of like a roads project. If we want to get ahead of the game on a few things, so we're going to have to pony up with some of that. And so it's, we talk about it.
We're going to have to jump at it though. You can't sit and let's wait and see.
But we need to be proactive. We don't need to wait. I mean, we're already reacting to a situation that we don't have a lot of control
I think
over.
that the best
But if
way
we don't,
the best way to be proactive is a budget at $100,000 and then you're ready to go when
exactly.
And if we need to pare that back a little bit at the end of this discussion, let's do that. But let's see what the number looks like with $100,000 in there, and then we can make some decisions.
And if we build up, Okay. We have completed public works, have we? I mean, Paul Walsh, I meant, has completed his
Yeah, Deputy Mayor, the other items were simply computers and the other services within the department, and they're just being replaced for the same reasons as the first computer.
And bylaw again it's all lots of computers, so but they don't last long anymore. Okay, that brings us to economic development. Ben, you've got the next hour, so yeah.
So I'll just run through this. The industrial park project for 2023 is a streetlight project, LEDs pointed downwards. So I'll just give some background on this. We actually in 2022 installed a natural gas line out in the industrial park, and we came in We came in a little bit under budget, so it was suggested by some public works staff that we use some of those remaining funds to do some streetlights. So even though it looks like a carryover, we've actually parlayed it into a new project to make the industrial park even better. Do you want to take questions there, or do you want me to keep moving on to economic development? Okay. Economic development, pop-ups, building, interior finishes, $10,000. This is through reserves. So basically we are going to put the finishing touches on our pop-ups initiative, some cabinetry, shelving units, and some carpentry work done to make it look a little nicer inside to complement all the work we did last year.
Great. The mayor has a comment here.
I'm looking forward to those pop-ups.
So am I.
Absolutely. Anyone else with any questions here? Jeff, sure to guess.
Do you already have a sense of who will be in the pop-ups?
No, we are like, I have a sense, there's feelers out there for sure. We are in the stages of coming up with agreements and putting applications together to get out there first quarter here.
There was a lot of interest to you when we first brought it out, and I know you can't talk about them because they're just interest, but boy, they sure came out of the woodwork. So I don't think we should have a problem, but we're all looking forward to it anyhow. So sorry, I know there was and somebody else had a hand up. No, okay, don't want to miss anybody. So Ben, that is about it. You're all good. Looking forward to another strong committee this year and get on with more projects. So
Sounds good.
thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to the wastewater plant. And is that Leslie? Yeah. Welcome back, Leslie. You've got the next. So. Take your time.
So this is with environmental services. We have almost completed the environmental assessment addendum process. I believe that is completed, hopefully. All goes fine by January 22 of 2023. With that being said, there is includes an aeration upgrades, stream relocation, installation of filtration unit, headworks, secondary clarifier, and other things with the wastewater treatment upgrade that we're intending to do. Going through that process, we are to hopefully engage in an engineering design. And we anticipate those fees, consulting fees, to be somewhere around $1 million for a $25 million upgrade. So that's quite sizable. I did speak of Loyalist Drive earlier on. There are water and sanitation components to that, and there's some carryover from Loyalist Drive in the industrial park area. We are also engaging in a inflow and infiltration investigation. So that's been budgeted for at $80,000. Some trucks, equipment that we need at our wastewater treatment facility. We have a pumping station force main project that have been awarded. The pumping station, I think, is going to be completed in April. As well, just about near the end is the consideration of the so staff have therefore proposed completing a geotechnical investigation and a remediation plan for Telephone Road pit, which includes evaluation of the pit for the disposal of excess fill and address the MECP directive to clean up the property. So that is going to be undertaken hopefully this year as well. In light of what the mayor had spoke of earlier on, there is the water component and the wastewater component to Prince Edward County Road 30. So maybe I misspoke earlier on, but it's involves the utilities, which is the water and the sanitation. So it's there.
County Road 64.
Yes, County Road 64. As well, we have, I spoke earlier on of Applewood Drive, and there's some carryover from that, but there's also a water and wastewater component to that as well. So that is addressed here in the overall budget. There's some, okay, so where are we now? We have some work to do on the water and wastewater rate study. I think there's some work that has to be done. There's some leftover monies there as well that we need to look at. So I think with the main concern here or interest here is the wastewater treatment upgrade. Having said all that, at the end of the day, that's really what it is. There's Loyalist Drive, Upwood, Prince Edward Engineering, and so I think that's clear and indicated there in terms of the table and what's presented on page 58. On the water side, I believe we looking for a skid steer equipment. There's the Main Street water main, the bulk water station. I spoke of those two earlier on. There is also, of course, bulk water station engineering work that needs to be done. Again, there is the Applewood Drive and Loyalist Drive water components to those projects. And they have their associated budgets for them. Prince Edward Street, County Road 64, and the water wastewater rate study. So basically, it's, I think, what is indicated in that table in terms of all the monies that we are looking for with regard to those projects. Yes, that's it.
Yes, okay, go ahead. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry.
Say something.
Stand up. Let's have Mr. Castleman have the floor here.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
All right.
I just want to make two comments. The elephant in the room is a $25 million project to our waste plant. And I think it's critical for staff and council to understand the enormity of that project and how careful we have to do from a financing strategy. So certainly the senior management team will put together a financing strategy in that regard. And we will, based on that strategy, let everybody understand what is the impact of your dollars in your pocketbook at the end of the day. If we're going to raise so much money on the wastewater rate, is it going to cost another $43 out of your pocket every month? What's the number? So that's pretty critical. And I think less critical, but still important. Leslie, you talked about an I&I program. So share with the group the importance of an I&I program and how it ties into residual capacity.
Well, inflow and infiltration obviously is a groundwater issue. There'll also be some leaks that we have in our wastewater piping works that we have. So we are trying and right now to do some work internally to look at some of the problem areas that we can address. And in so doing, we're coming up with a sanitary model to address some of those issues. It would require us to look at flow monitoring at targeted or strategic spots in our system, so that we know where those are. At the moment, we don't, but we were with the study. Our intention is to know where those problem areas are and to move forward with that. So yeah, that's actually what it is at the moment. I think we did do we had gone out to tender earlier on before my time for looking at a sanitary model, but quite expensive to do so. We again have, I believe, the wherewithal to look internally at building our model to ascertain what it is that we have on the ground and where those problem areas are.
Mr. Chair, I'm just going to do a tag team. Certainly the connection of an effective I&I program is to claw back some of the residual capacity that we're losing when we're treating groundwater within our sewage services. And we have the ability to treat, I think, 4,600 cubes. And we've been running or tracking around 3,000 or so. So the more we can claw back that 3,000 and take it back to 2,500 or whatever, that's just an estimate, a guesstimate, the more growth we have and more ability that we have for assessment growth and the ability to grow the service level that we have. So I just want to make sure that everybody understood an effective I&I program is very important from a growth perspective.
Councilor Raleigh.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Leslie, I'd like to ask about the Main Street water main. First of all, the length of that, where are we going to the western end of Brighton and then into town?
Yes, the west end, I don't think it's all the way into town. I'll have to come back to you.
Okay, that's okay. And will it be, as over the years, we've heard as well, is it going to be a bigger pipe going in than what's already there? I don't know what the size of the pipe, I know it's not big, but I think there was talk about that's what it is now. Is it going to be that big now? So
I don't know. I just know that the former director of public works and I carried a long cast iron piece of it to the MP's office so that we could get the grant that you see in this budget. So it was about that wide and about as long as these two desks, and it was much heavier than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, yeah, when you're talking cast and stuff, for sure. But I know over the years there's been talk about maybe capacity going through, and whether with all of this subdivisions, all the development going south of Highway 2, whether that pipe needs to be bigger than what we have now. Yeah, upsize. That's a good word, Linda. Thanks.
Yes, I'll come back to you with, I know it's the west end. I just don't know how far it goes into town. And then also come whether we are upsizing or not.
I believe it's to Ontario Street, give or take. I think that's where it was, because really this all came out of that massive failure we had right at the Ontario Street intersection 2-3 years ago. Yeah.
More question. You spoke of replacing at the Butler Street crossing. Which Butler Street crossing are you talking about? Ontario and Butler, or are you talking Division and Butler? Or Prince Edward and Butler, maybe?
I don't remember talking of Butler Street. Okay, let me. Yeah. Okay.
Where do you see that? Oh, you're on the, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the spreadsheet. You're in the report itself. Okay. Yeah. No. I think that's yeah, I think it does. Yeah.
Jeff, go ahead.
Thank you. You mentioned again in the comments, the spiraling costs for the management and disposal of excess fill. I'm wondering if you can elaborate on that. And I'm very curious about that.
My understanding is that as of January 1st, we have to be very careful in terms of how we tender for materials, excess materials, other materials from site, from town. And in so doing, where we place those materials are very important as well. The legislation is new, and it will require us to live and learn as we go along. That's the best answer I have at this point. It has been experimented with or dealt with other municipalities. And we'll have to look at how we go out to tender for some specific projects.
I didn't see I guess I was curious about the quantity of fill. Like, are we moving like thousands of truckloads of fill around town?
We could place some of that fill on our own site, but is there a limit? There is a limitation on the amount of fill. I think it's 10,000 cubes. And that is over a 2-year period, if I'm not mistaken, that you can store that material.
This may be a tangential question, but I couldn't find mention of sandbags anywhere else in the budget. You mentioned sandbags specifically for dumping sandbags there after their usage. A few years back, we used a lot of sandbags in Brighton, and I can't find a contingency fund or anything else here that we would use to pay for them. So I'm just curious about that.
A few years ago, when we started having the flooding, because we had 2 significant years of flooding, we established an emergency reserve fund or emergency reserve. And those dollars, we put 10,000 a year into that fund and have not drawn anything out. So if we were to face another flood situation, and I think that we stockpile a bit of sandbags too, empty, and we bring sand in and go through that whole process again of filling those bags and getting them to people's properties.
Earl Ostrander has a question.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and through you. It isn't with regard to anything on the spreadsheets or in this in the commentary. It is with regard to the wastewater pollution control plant and the $25 million price tag. At what point will we have the numbers, the actual numbers in our hands, so we can start going hat in hand to our friends at upper levels of government?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's a great question, and all we can do at this point in time is give you our best estimate, and it's a high level estimate. And as you might appreciate, as you drill down between preliminary design and final design, you get to understand what the scope of work is a little bit more closely. And as a result of that, you can estimate what the cost is going to be a little bit more closely. So, and Leslie knows this far better than I do, but you know, at this early stage, you know, we could be plus or minus 40%. And as you get closer to the final design, you might be plus or minus 10%. So, you know, we've got money in the budget to get from, you know, preliminary design to final design to get out to tender. And until you get the tender price, you really don't know. All we know is it's a big number, and we have to be careful. And we have to get third-party funding for sure.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I think we're all well aware of that, and our sitting MPP and our sitting MP are well aware of the fact that we will be coming hat in hand to them. In my pre-Christmas conversation with Mr. Pecuniary, with the Honorable David Pecuniary, he asked what we needed. I said the number looks like it's going to be around 25 million. So you know 24 from you would be great. I still got a Christmas present from him, so that's a good news.
Uh,
Just to,
Go ahead.
sorry, just to answer the 90% design is when you know, know the real true amount, to be quite honest.
Well, that he didn't have $1 million. So $1 million for design work for wastewater is in a given year, like this year. Are they going to get all that design done in 1 year?
Yes. By fall.
Fantastic. We would need it if we're going to go in. So what?
They'll,
if
they'll
we-
do it, they'll do it earlier for 2 million.
Jeff, I think Counselor Jeff will- anyhow, is there any questions on this? It's been very well explained. Bob, looks like you're about to say something. I don't want to miss you again. So, okay. So yeah, we've got one here. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When there was that public open house at the King Edward Park Arena and the engineers were there, I had a conversation with one of the engineers where they talked about dredging of the materials in the settling pond. I believe Councillor Rowley may have been part of that conversation as well, and how there was an ongoing need to dredge out some of that waste material to increase the amount of time that the wastewater was in that pond. Is that accounted for anywhere in this budget?
I believe that's an operational
operations?
aspect, and we did not do the full dredging or desludging of the lagoons. I don't know what percentage it was, but if I can get to an amount as well as the proportion of the lagoons that were sludged, just to be accurate, I can provide you with that information.
So we'll get to that at a further date. Okay, thank you.
Unless there's any other questions, Jeff?
Sorry, I have a question that's unrelated to wastewater. Is there another time for questions
It's
after this?
regarding budget. I'm fine with if you have
Okay.
questions.
Early in the budget, there was mention of replacing heat pumps. And later in the request for grants, there's mention from an important group in our community of needing to replace furnaces. I'm wondering if it would be appropriate for the municipality to support that by supporting the purchase of a heat pump instead of a new gas furnace. That would be a capital expenditure. It would be maybe from the grants section. I'm not sure. But we did have an email from a resident today that also sparked this in my mind, urging us to support the adoption of heat pumps. And of course, that's something that's dear to my heart. Something I did myself this past year, and it saved us a ton of money.
You have a question? Yeah, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair, further to what Councillor Wheeldon has said, I was listening to CBC yesterday, and there's a federal program right now that will reimburse $5,000 for the conversion from traditional furnace, fuel burning furnace to a heat pump unit. There may be something equivalent.
Perhaps that's a discussion for Mr. Walsh and the development community and the builders and I think at some point probably it'd be a good discussion to see if they're the ones that are going to be putting them in, and lots of them. So
yeah, it seemed like it could be something that would come under grant, since it was a grant request, or something that could come under capital because it's a capital thing, or it could be a CIP we don't have yet. I'm not sure where it goes. That's why I thought I'd just ask.
Oh, Linda, please go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So I believe I understand that this was a grant and aid for a building that's in our municipality, and they've requested money, and they said that their furnace has to be replaced. I remember reading it. I know who the group is, but that property is actually owned by Lower Trent Conservation, and Lower Trent should very well know that there's grants available and apply for them themselves.
If I may, Deputy Mayor,
Go
in
ahead.
concert with Soho, I mean, Soho does lease that property from the Lower Trent for $1 or whatever the deal is. Under the guarantee that they'll take care of that property. So I believe that's what the intent is with this grant and aid request. But I guess I think we should make the suggestion, perhaps through the Soho, your friend beside you, through the Soho rep, when that happens. But I don't think we should be telling them what to do, but making a gentle nudge and a suggestion and offering assistance if we can to get that grant for them. I think is fine.
Go ahead, Linda.
It's just that I don't think that we can apply for a grant for somebody else's property. Oh,
I was thinking of offering a grant in addition to the federal grant, since they're asking for money anyway.
It's worth the dialogue, but it's a good discussion when we get to grants and aid.
Yeah. Can we leave that for now? Good question, good suggestions, and the mayor has another comment.
Yeah, I asked the fire department what isn't in their budget, and I meant to do that with everybody, and I forgot. I got thinking of other things. So I would ask now for everyone who provided a presentation, is there anything that you don't have here that you think we should be considering? And I'm not saying that you haven't included everything we should be considering, but there's always those things that I know at a staffing level you take out in order to get down to that 4.5% so that this looks palatable to council. What have you taken out that we really should be considering for 2023?
I can answer the fire chief.
Jim's ready to put on basketball nets. I know how much he loves them.
Mayor, I can answer the fire chiefs.
well, through you, Deputy Mayor, we did have a list on page 4 of the things that we couldn't include in the budget. And some of those things were transfers to reserves for planning studies or for the arena. One thing that was taken out of the budget about 3 years ago, but was a static budget line, was $130,000 a year that we put into public works reserves for public works projects. So that is not building anymore because we used to transfer that money every year. And, you know, with financial constraints, we weren't able to do that. And I know that the fire chief came ready to talk about his truck. But I don't know that maybe staff should think about it a little bit more before they start advising council on what they could use in their B list.
I'm very specifically talking about capital because that's what we're talking about tonight. So I don't.
I could sleep on that too, Mayor.
Yeah. I can.
Anyone? Okay, so we're about to close up tonight, this spreadsheet. Does anyone have any further questions tonight? Go ahead, Mayor.
I just want to make sure that we've captured the discussion and that when we see the draft come back, that we will have opportunity to look at what a fire pumper will do to us. What an additional $80,000 or so for land banking will do, and what am I missing? Additional surface treatment.
Okay, so the list that I have at this point is added deposit for the pumper replacement. Staff to bring back some surface treatment roads needs up to 71,000. Consider a transfer to reserves for asphalt roads because we talked about that additional monies that we couldn't apply to a project. Water bottle filling stations, approximately 3,000 each. Check with the utility company regarding the ramp and funding. parks redevelopment for including basketball nets. Land banking initiatives increase of 80,000. And I have to add the development charges study to the budget because we anticipate doing that in 2023.
Thank you, Director. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Linda, you added the 130,000 for public works. 160. Yes,
That was the transfer to reserves.
yes, yeah, okay.
I think you're getting ready to close up, I assume. You're getting there. I No, I just want to thank staff for bringing this forward. You know, with 15% non-residential price index inflationary pressures on those items that are essentially what we looked at tonight, all the capital, and 7+% on residential in our operating. This team managed to bring forward a budget that it isn't going to be terribly palatable at 4.5%. Certainly, what we're adding won't be we won't get any pats on the back for it, but I want to thank the team for bringing it forward because when we roll it together, the impacts are about 12% in terms of cost to the community, and they've managed to try to bring a budget to us to keep the wheels on the bus for 4.5%. So I really appreciate the work you've done. I don't take anything away from that work by suggesting that we need to add things into the budget. I just want to have a good idea what it's going to take to make sure our municipality continues to move forward in the way we have been over the last 4 or 5 years. And I don't want to roll backwards. And if that means we have to dig a little deeper in the first year of this term, then I'm hoping that we have a council with the will to do that. Thank you, Deputy.
Thank you, Mayor. That's a good note to end it on. Thank you. I have a motion moved by Byron Fredis and seconded by Ann Butwell, Councillor. The council receive the first draft of the capital budget overview as information. All those in favor? Carried. And with that, I'm going to close my books and declare it 8:36. Oh, I didn't want to leave out anybody. Question period. Okay. Does anybody like to come forward with a question tonight on anything to do with our budget? Sorry, I wasn't trying to sneak out of the.
My question comes back to the Proctor Place sidewalk. My question is, why is the municipality paying for a sidewalk?
I think I have the answer to this
Yeah.
question. You may recall that this property was subject to an Ontario, I don't know what the name of the bloody group was. We'll call it Ontario Land Tribunal, but I don't think that's what it was at the time. I think it was the LPAT, but anyway, it was subject to a hearing. Part of that hearing was that the chair told the developer, as I recall, to negotiate that item with the municipality. And so we were not able to get the full funding for the cost of that sidewalk. We were able to get the full funding for the cost of the crosswalk, I believe. I'm looking at Director Walsh because he has more info. Yeah.
Yeah, the determination by LPAT, I think you're correct, that at the time was that the sidewalk was in part beneficial to the neighborhood in general. So there was a public benefit as well as a benefit to directly to the development, but these were all offsite costs. So that kind of triggers some kind of recognition of the community benefit. So it did come in at 50% of cost. I don't know that spoke specifically to the sidewalk. I don't know it spoke specifically about the crosswalk, but crosswalk is in the equation there somewhere.
And so that is the danger of what happens when we aren't allowed to negotiate with the developers anymore, and we turn everything over to the land tribunal to make the decisions for us.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but I recall the wording saying that as a condition of the rezoning, the developer was to provide the sidewalk.
I think the conditions of the developer was to provide a certain amount, and it wasn't the full amount. I remember having this conversation with you before, and we did a deep dive into the LPAT decision.
Well, I'd like to see the words that say there is a split, because I didn't see it.
Would you be able to provide that to? Yeah, thank you.
And while you're there, wasn't there discussion of a crosswalk too? Okay. All right. I know the people that live there aren't, they're anxious to see it. Anyhow, go ahead, Jeff.
Since talk of sidewalks, tweak this in my mind. There was mention earlier of work being done on Loyalist. Is there ever any plan for a sidewalk into the industrial park? I mean, I know we don't tend to think of people walking in there, but it's the only cafe south of the tracks. I would walk into the shops in the industrial park if there was a sidewalk to do it, and I don't because there isn't. So I was just wondering.
Good question, but to date, there's been no discussions about a sidewalk. Yeah, if there was more commercial related development that warrants a sidewalk, industrial development doesn't normally warrant a sidewalk, historically. But yeah, that plaza there does attract a lot of activity, and so does the other commercial shops there. Yeah, but interesting to observe that. Thank you.
Okay, we'll adjourn the meeting again. What's that? 8:40 p.m. So anyhow, thank you, everyone, you and the staff. Thank everybody for